What you've just heard is the peal that calls the congregation of St. John's to worship. Bells indeed have been calling Christians to worship for many centuries, back to at least the 6th or 7th century AD. Here at St. John's, they've been part of our worship since this church's consecration in 1853. They mark the hours of prayer, they call us to times of gladness, they also mark times of sadness, it's when the bell tolls. And in the middle part of the 20th century, St. John's bells were so famous that it became known as the church with the chimes. Under one of my predecessors, Father Ralston, rector of St. John's, in the 1980s, the bells of St. John's were greatly expanded, and we now have a well-equipped carillon, a set of bells that can play entire tunes from a keyboard, as you will hear later on this video. And so in addition to marking the hours from 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., calling this congregation to prayer, the bells also play a daily concert at midday for the pleasure and edification of our neighborhood. In this video, Stephen Branyon will be sharing with you some of the pleasures of this musical treasure of St. John's.
Hello, this is Stephen Branyon again, organist choirmaster at St. John's in Savannah. I'm sitting at the organ console today, but I'm not going to play the organ, but an instrument that is hidden in the organ that's really much larger, which is the set of bells that we have in the tower. And they're played here from the console. Hidden treasure that came to us by the gift of Joseph Fay. He came here in 1934 to work in the cotton industry from Boston. He stayed for 20 years, and while he was here, he fell in love with St. John's and donated the first set of 8 bells. At the time, they stayed here for 10 years until the Civil War, when Lincoln showed up into town. And then the bells were taken out of the tower to make room for horses, which were brought into the church as a stable. Pews were removed. They were going to be shipped up north to be made into some kind of artillery. And then at some point, somebody intervened and stopped that from happening. The bells were saved and rehung the wrong way, I might add. And in rehanging the bells, one of them cracked. And then the daughter of the bell maker, McNeely, this was a bell foundry that is now a part of Troy, New York, a Dutch village there. The daughter came through and she added 3 more bells to it in 1910. The original bells were played by means of ropes. You pull the ropes and they sounded the bells. But when the second set of bells came, the damaged bell that was cracked during the Civil War was taken down to be recast. One bell was left up in the tower for the church to use during services during Lent that year. And then they were hung back up, and in 1910, when the daughter came to give the next set of three bells, she installed a bell console mechanism, which was just wooden stubs sticking out in the design of a keyboard instrument, of which you really played with your wrist, putting much pressure on. It had a metal plate with numbers, and those numbers corresponded to the pitches of the bells, so they could you didn't have to read music to play them. You could play them by a numbering chart. So in 1976, the two bells were given in memory of that Carillon, and that was it until 1986, when the Carillon Tower was then the bells were added to make 47 bells. One of the reasons, the organ is itself one huge instrument, but of course, in this instance, containing the bell tower, it really is much larger than you may think in your mind. Housing all of these 47 bells in the tower, the largest bell is 12,500 pounds. Careful planning has to be given to towers, and then in the olden days when people were actually change ringing in the tower, bells had to be mounted to where they would swing both ways so that all the weight didn't go in one direction when pulling the bells. So I'm sitting at the console because this is one place where the bells can be played from, and for some time they have to be played from the console for various reasons. But here they're played from the bottom manual or keyboard, and the lowest bell, the one we said weighed the most, 12,500 pounds, is the low E. So I'm going to strike it and you may hear it. Let me just go up the scale a bit. So you can see as I play the keys on the keyboard, you might think there's something wrong with your video because when I'm depressing the key, it's not happening immediately. And that's because a series of wires have to go underneath the floor of the church and all the way up to the balcony to cause the mechanism to play. So it takes a moment in time for that to happen. But yet and still, it's very efficient. And of course, the smallest bell goes way up. Let me play that if you can hear that. You may not be able to hear that as well. The smaller bells are very hard to hear. And the other way that I have to play the bells is I have this little box here, and I can depress a key. And for instance, at the end of a funeral, we can use it for the tolling bell at the end while people are exiting the church. And then another time that we can use this box is before evensong, say, before the procession by our peal that happens also at 11:50 on Sunday morning. So I can also use this box when I am busy playing organ music from the organ, and this can enable the bells to play themselves without my having to do it manually at the organ. So here you have the mechanism and the bells from St. John's here at the organ. Thank you.